This time on the main attraction, we're going to start laying our tabletop and sub-roadbed, and maybe some track. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Mike with the main attraction, where our focus is what is on our tracks, namely, our trains. We're here to learn as much as we can about model railroading and have fun in the process. I'm building my first model railroad. Maybe you're in the same boat. Oops, wrong metaphor. I should say, maybe you're in the same boxcar. Or maybe you're at the same train station I am. Either way, come on along for the journey. If you've been doing this for a while, we'd love to have you join us too. We could sure use your experience. So click the little subscribe button and then click the little bell icon right next to it so you can be notified of future videos. Up to this point, we've built the benchwork, put up and painted the backdrop, and today we're going to start laying the tabletop and sub-roadbed, and possibly some track. The first section we're going to start with is a reversing loop or a turn back loop. It's at the end of my layout, and because it's a reversing loop, it's the widest part of the layout. Instead of having a big empty space down there, I decided to put a couple industries in the middle of the loop so I can do some switching. I thought that would add some visual interest as well as give me a chance to learn more about operations. Most of my layout will be scenery, so I won't really get a chance to do much operations, and I thought by adding a couple industries down there that I'd have more opportunity to do that. Okay, with that in mind, let's head over to the layout and get to work. Okay, I'm over here at the layout, and as you can see, I've got a couple pieces of plywood here with a piece of 1/2-inch styrofoam on top of this one. I'm using AC plywood, which means the top is finished and the bottom has some knots and other imperfections. Here's a smaller piece so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the top, pretty smooth. Here's the bottom, has a knot right here, and the whole finish is pretty rough on the back. Now I've already traced a 17-inch radius loop on the styrofoam. That's how I knew how big to cut the plywood. And I'm going to take this off and move it over here to work on it since it's so wide. I've taken this plywood and I've set it over on a couple sawhorses to work on it over here. And this gives me a chance to show you how I'm going to connect the plywood to the benchwork when I'm done. So as you can see, I have some risers here. They're just pieces of 1x4 with a little 1x4 cleat screwed on with 2 screws. And right here, they're only about a 1/2 inch tall. It's not really necessary that I have them. I could screw down through the plywood, but then I would have foam on top of that and scenery on top of that. So if I ever needed to take this off, I couldn't do it without totally destroying it. If I use these, I can screw up from underneath, and then if I need to take it off at some point in the future, I can take those screws out and this piece will just lift off. Okay, let's swing around now and we'll glue the styrofoam to the plywood. To attach the styrofoam to this plywood, I'm going to be using this PL300 for foam board. I also picked up some of this liquid nails for projects. It too says it can be used for foam board. Before we put this piece of styrofoam down on the board, we want to remember to take this plastic off. It's just protective. The glue is only going to stick to the foam, not to the plastic. So take that off. And then we just use a plain old caulking gun. And I have about somewhere between 1/4 and 1/8 inch bead on here. Just spread it out. I'm putting it about every 5 inches or so. And I'm going to put one more strip along this edge because the way I cut my styrofoam, I have an extra piece along this edge. So I want to make sure that gets stuck down good. And once that's down, I can take my styrofoam, just lay it down on there, line it up to the edges. Actually grips pretty good because once it's down on there, it's hard to move it around. And then I have my last piece that trimmed to fit the backdrop. So we put that down like so. And I have another piece of plywood to put over it to protect the styrofoam. And then I'm weighting it down. Then I'll leave that sit overnight and we should be good to go. Okay, my cork is all glued down. It's grabbed a hold nice and firm. So the next step will be to put my cork sub-roadbed down. Part of my track plan is traced out, the loop is traced out, and then I went ahead and drew in the couple sidings I'm going to make so I can do some switching. And I clearly marked down here where my turnouts are going to go. Now I don't want my cork roadbed to end right at the end of this seam, so I'm going to make a couple of them a little bit longer, a couple inches, and I'll attach it after it's put down, and a couple of them I'll make a little shorter, and then we'll attach that. So got everything together. I got my road bed, I got my cutting mat and cutters so I can trim the road bed at the turnouts, and then I got some little T-pins that I can stick the road bed down so it will stay while it's gluing. And then of course my PL 300 for foam board in just a plain old caulking gun. So away we go. And I'm just going to put it down, and then I'm going to spread it with a putty knife, and I marked where all the things need to go in the turnouts, holes and stuff, so we should be in good shape for that. Again, I have about an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch bead on this. Not putting down very much. I don't really need it to get gobbed in there. And I'm just pretty much sticking to my lines that I've drawn. I'm going to take my putty knife and I'm just going to spread it out on both sides of that line. It's a brand new tube of caulk that I'm using, and the beginning of it, it's not mixed up too well, so it's kind of a goopy mess there. Doesn't need to be as wide as my putty knife here, but then I'm not pushing it down super hard either, so there's enough to grab the road bed when I put it down. And then, like I said, I'm going to leave just a little bit hanging over to go on the other side of this joint. And that's a straightaway, so I'm not too worried about that, but I'll put a few pins in it to hold it. And you could just use regular push pins for this too. Pins will be much more useful when I get to the curve and the cork doesn't want to really bend around it, which I think is going to start about here. I have one turnout starting about here. We're going to kind of follow that. Then the next turnout's going to start up here. So we're following the two outside parts of that. And this little bit here, I'm going to scrape that up. When I put this piece down with the next piece, then I will put some more in there and stick that down with it. Smooth out a little bit more of this down here. I'm going to come back in the middle here. I'm going to cut this piece more or less the way it's going to fit there. Then I'll have to cut this piece, and I have another turnout here. Maybe I should do that one first. And then I'll have to repeat that process up here for this next turnout too. And so I'm just going to keep this up until I get done all the way around the other side. Okay, you can see this is all done. It's been sitting here for quite a while now, and I'm ready to pull the pins out, clean up a little bit. There's quite a lot of caulk that missed, so I'll be vacuuming that up. And then the next step will be to drill some holes for feeder wires, position my turnouts and drill the holes for that, and then probably lay some track. And I got the next module that goes at this end all ready to go to put some cork roadbed on there, and then we'll stick them up on the tabletop and see how it looks. Okay, we made some progress over there. It's looking good. I'm excited because pretty soon I'll be laying some track, and then maybe I can even run some train. So tune in next time. We'll see if there's some more progress made over there. In the meantime, if you like this video, click that little thumbs up button. I appreciate that. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, if there's some ideas that you would do differently to help us learn from that. And then if you haven't subscribed and you'd like to follow along as I continue working on my railroad, click the subscribe button, then click the little bell icon right next to it. You'll be reminded every time as soon as I put up a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the main attraction.